Hi folks, welcome to your latest mwis Outlook in association with Ellis Brigham. Now it's a rather complicated story as we head onwards toward the weekend, so quite a bit of uncertainty in the forecast more than a few days ahead, all triggered by some thundery air that's trying to come up from the near continent, and what happens to that and where it goes will dictate just how the pattern fares into the weekend and beyond. But it's likely that lower pressure is nearby for a while, so expect something just that bit more unsettled. In the short term, it's weak weather fronts that are in the picture, and this is Wednesday's chart. We've got a front that's been drifting in from the Atlantic through Tuesday, and that will more or less fizzle out, but it's leaving a legacy of low cloud and some rain and some drizzle along itself across Wales, across northern England, sort of clearing from Scotland, but still leaving a legacy of some cloud and some drizzly showers, maybe the odd local heavier burst in places. Best of cloud breaks toward the eastern side of the Highlands. Temperatures then relatively cool across Scotland, fairly warm and humid across England and Wales on the warmer side of that front. What's going on around Biscay is an area of low pressure and something thundery developing here, and that will have a go then at starting to push northwards into the south of Britain Wednesday night into Thursday. Our same front, giving the boundary between the cooler, fresher Atlantic air and the warmer, humid continental air, is draped still somewhere across Britain into Thursday, maybe nothing more than a zone of cloud at this stage. But in the humid atmosphere toward the southeast is that thundery plume that's likely to run up across eastern counties of England, so more or less missing the mountain areas, and for many places Thursday then could well be a decent day across Wales, the Lake District, north of England, across into Scotland, maybe a few showers just in western regions, the odd one may pop up inland by the afternoon, but generally in a cool, fresh environment with some cloud and some sunshine and breaks towards higher tops. The winds looking relatively light, may just be a stronger southwesterly in northern Scotland. Fairly high pressure is in existence toward the north into Friday. That front has drifted a bit further southward, it looks like, so the humid air is trapped away a bit further south. It looks like a pleasantly warm day, not particularly humid, mostly light winds and some sunshine and some broken cloud and most hills in the clear. Still just watching what does happen to the south though, because if that frontal zone is just a bit further north, it maybe just gives the risk of something thundery being into Wales, perhaps the Midlands, perhaps even as far north as the Peak District. That is open to a bit of question then at this stage. But further north, more likely beneath high pressure, it's a dry day, a very low risk of just an isolated shower popping up. That would look like being a similar suggestion into the weekend, but I suspect it's a little bit more complicated than that by the time we get there, so I won't dwell too much on these details. There's quite a few bits of weather, pieces of the jigsaw, if you like, to move around before we get to the weekend. Many places for Saturday may well be dry under slack high pressure. One or two localised slow-moving showers, maybe heavy bursts in places could just form, and if the little low around Biscay starts to drift further north, then we need to watch for some heavy or thundery rain coming up from the south. Once again, there's also low pressure out over the Atlantic. It won't take much to tip this story into something that little bit more unsettled developing through the weekend. Sunday's chart at this stage treated with a lot of caution. It just shows the idea of a small area of low pressure with some heavy or thundery rain spinning up into England, across into parts of Wales as well. Further features out over the Atlantic. Scotland stays nearby to high pressure, one or two showers locally, but you look at this chart and really just look at it as a very fuzzy view. There's the risk of some heavy thundery rain for some. There's also a fair chance of a good amount of dry weather for others, but we'll get the detail as we get much nearer the time. One way or another, it looks as though lower pressure is likely to get in charge for a few days as we go into the start of next week. Now this is maybe one of the more pessimistic forecast models at this distance, but it just shows the scope for low pressure to park itself over us for a day or so, and maybe even if this model has its way, a few more days into next week. It's very uncertain, it must be said, just how that plays out. A lot of weather pieces then, as I mentioned, to get into the puzzle before we understand where next week's weather goes. But I think a few days of more unsettled weather with some rain for many places is looking believable. You look at the pressure anomaly, the average for the week as a whole through until the 27th of June, and the green colour that's a fairly pale signal on this chart is the idea of lower pressure still being nearby, at least in the early part of this forecast, but maybe diminishing with time to allow higher pressure to build in once again. This model seems to fancy it very much over Eastern Europe and Scandinavia. If this chart were to develop, then we could well look at some rather hot weather developing in the later stages of June, because this really would drag the air up from from Spain and North Africa across Britain on a strong southerly flow. If that happens, to say, some very hot and humid conditions, possibly some thundery air in the mix once again, that maybe is just the general view as we head toward the later stages of June. Fairly unsettled for a while, then some hot weather returning late in the month. As always, we shall see how that unfolds and keep you up to date. All your local forecasts every day on our website. That's your planning outlook in association with Ellis Brigham. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.